Hey, what's up, everybody? I am back talking The X-Files. That's right. I am revisiting every season of The X-Files and coming back here and giving you guys my thoughts as I go episode by episode and then break down in a seasonal format each season. That being said, for those of you wondering, yes, I'm still going to be pumping out other content, just been a little busy. But today we are here to talk season 2 of The X-Files. Hey, what's up, everybody? I am Nick Push. Thanks for tuning in for this season 2 of The X-Files Revisited. If you missed my season 1 Revisited, make sure you go check that out because I had a lot of good thoughts on not only season 1, but what the series means to me as a whole. The way we're going to do season 2 and probably each season onward is I'm going to give you guys my kind of quick synopsis on what happens this season in a grand overarching story sense, and then talk about some of the characters, our main players, what they're up to this season, and then get into my favorite mythology episodes and my favorite monster of the week episodes, because both of those types of episodes are what makes the X-Files the X-Files. So like I said in my season 1 Revisited, that look, this show holds a special place in my heart, always has, and it's been a lot of fun revisiting. I just finished season 2, a little bit into season 3, so I need to come and get my thoughts on this. So season 2 picks up kind of right off where season 1 ended, with the X-Files shut down. Mulder and Scully have been separated. There is no X-Files anymore. But as we know, that's not going to stop spooky Mulder and now, Dana Scully, who is kind of neck deep in this team as well. They're going to still do their investigations, but they are separated at first. Scully is teaching at Quantico, and Mulder is basically listening to like surveillance tapes. That's Mulder's fucking worst nightmare. But little things happen throughout the beginning of the season where, Mulder has to go investigate something and he needs Scully's help. And, they're still kind of working together, but not really in an official capacity. And you can just see that they miss each other and they developed a lot of trust with each other. Season starts out with little green men. Mulder kind of goes to Puerto Rico and, encounters little green men, but Scully has to come rescue him. So there's some good stuff there. And as the season starts to progress, we get a bombshell. Scully is abducted by aliens. I don't know. By the government. I don't know. It's never fully stated. It's never fully clear. But she is abducted, and that is, of course, because of Gillian Anderson's real life pregnancy. So they put that into the story. Eventually, Scully comes back. We think she's dead. Or at least Mulder does, and her family certainly does. But she comes back, our agents get back together, the X-Files are reopened, and we're back off and running. So it's kind of a unique season here, the way it kind of starts, and then it takes a little bit of time to get back to the status quo of Mulder and Scully, investigating these Monster of the Week episodes. With that comes some massive mythology. The show really starts to take shape. This season, it starts to really fully become what it really became. It starts, it kind of knows, or it kind of figures out what the formula that works for it, with being episodic television, but also still wanting to have, a grand story, with these other standalone stories, something that TV networks were kind of against at the time. They wanted people to be able to tune in for an hour and be done with it and not have to keep up, for ratings and things like that. But the X-Files found a way to kind of have its cake and eat it too. And as the season progresses, we just get some great episodes. It's really hard for me to pick my favorites in this. We're going to get to that. But there's just some fantastic episodes here. There's some stinkers too. Don't get me wrong. Every season of the X-Files has some stinkers. It has some stuff that just does not work. But season 2 is a really strong season, in my opinion. And we get a great cliffhanger ending, which I'll talk about when we get to my favorite episodes. But yeah, so that's kind of the overarching what happened in season 2. Let's talk about some of the characters here. We're going to get through, a handful of characters here who I kind of determined as big players in the season. Number one, we got Mulder, who's depressed because the X-Files are closed, and probably more depressed that he can't work with Scully, the one person he has that he can trust. So at the beginning of the season, you see Mulder, he's in a dark place. Like I said, he's listening to surveillance, and that makes him miserable. But eventually, through Scully's abduction, he finds his way and starts kind of getting back to the Mulder we know and love. Getting into Scully here, like I said, she's teaching at Quantico to start the season. Gillian Anderson is great as always this season. Like I said, she was pregnant in real life, so they wove that into the story, so we get to see her abducted in the Dwayne Barry and Ascension episodes, which we'll talk about shortly. And then we see her come back, and, like I said, without missing a beat. So Scully and Mulder, great as always, even though they were separated at the beginning of this. And you can see how they trust each other, even though they're not assigned to each other. They're partners. You can feel the trust and the love, not in a romantic sense, but the love they have for each other, and that they really need each other as season 2 starts and progresses. Then we have AD Walter Skinner, who really starts to play a big role or have a bigger part in season 2. We know he's the one that shut down the X-Files. We kind of started seeing him at the end of season 1. But season 2, he plays a big role. And we never quite know which side he is on. Cancer Man is always in his office, right? So we don't know if he's working for him. He's kind of done putting up with Mulder's shit. But then he also reopens the X-Files. He has some great conversations with Mulder. There's an episode where Mulder's showing Skinner about the conspiracy, and these people might be involved, and Scully and stuff like that. And Skinner's like, all right, what you got? And then he's you can tell he's kind of protecting Mulder and Scully, and he cares for them. But he's in an awkward position because Mulder keeps, defying shit, and Skinner needs to kind of keep him in line. So Skinner really becomes a good character here. And we dive a little bit into his backstory. He tells a story about when he was in the Marines and a supernatural thing that happened. And, he's trying to convince Mulder, that his resignation, because Mulder resigns when Scully's, when Scully's gone. He's telling him his resignation is unacceptable. So great character work from Skinner here, even though it's a little bit subtle. And then we're finally, for the first time, introduced to Alex Krycek, who will play a huge part in the series moving forward. He is kind of a partner of Mulder's when Scully is not his partner, and he's a double agent. He's working for the cigarette smoking man, Cancer Man. He is working for. But when you're first introduced to Krycek, you just think he's some rookie agent, and they make a point. Mulder actually, he kind of likes him because Krycek is open to the supernatural, and it just kind of progresses from there. So Krycek's a great character. I'm sure we'll get into him as the seasons progress because he'll show up randomly and wackiness ensues. So gotta love Krycek. Next, I mentioned him earlier. We got Cancer Man. He is back with a much bigger role in season 2, a lot more lines. There's a great scene where Mulder gets his address from Skinner, by the way, and confronts him. And, he's just always there. He's always in the background. It's really, really just kind of unnerving the way, he's always just there lighting a cigarette, and he's always just, like I said, in the background, pulling strings. So Cancer Man, cigarette smoking man, whatever you call him, great character. The lone gunmen are back. They randomly show up, and we get some good scenes with them. Especially, when Scully disappears, you get Frohickey showing up in like a tux and stuff like that. But they're helping as always. So they're entertaining, and they become reoccurring characters, as the series progresses as well. And finally, we got a character that I fucking adore every time he is on screen. Every time he shows up, he just shows up randomly in episodes for 2 minutes tops, and he's gone. But he steals the show. And I'm talking about a character that doesn't even have a name. He's just known as Mr. X, played by Stephen Williams. Creighton Duke if you're a fan of Friday the 13th and Jason Goes to Hell. But Stephen Williams steals the scene in every fucking episode he shows up in. He's such a different character than Deep Throat. He doesn't want to put his life at risk, but he is helping Mulder, kind of, throughout the season. And he doesn't put up with any bullshit. He is a badass. There's a great line he has when Mulder goes and meets him outside the opera, and Mulder's like, "How was the opera?" And he just deadpan goes, "It's great. Never slept better." Like, it's just fucking fantastic. So Mr. X is a great character. All right, let's get into my episodes. Just like season 1, I'm going to give you guys my 3 favorite mythology episodes and my 3 favorite monster of the week episodes, and then we'll wrap it up and be done. Like I said earlier, this is a great season of television, and I had a really hard time choosing, especially my Monster of the Week episodes. So I'm just going to give a couple quick notes, couple quick shout outs to a couple episodes that did not make the list. Actually, a handful. First one is called F. Emasculata, and that is about a kind of a virus during a prison break. You get these prisoners that are exposed to something by a kind of like a big pharma type company, and they escape. And Big Pharma did this on purpose. And you got the cigarette smoking man with a great line where he's saying, Mulder, we control the virus by controlling the information. And it's just like watching it after COVID. It's like, holy fuck, dude. Like, that was relevant 30 years ago, and it's more relevant now after what happened. It's a good episode. It's not great, not good enough to make the list, but it's memorable. Speaking of memorable, there's an episode called The Calruzi, which is kind of a mix between The Omen and The Exorcist. And there's a little boy that it always stuck with me. There's a balloon in the opening scene that is being pulled by what looks like a ghost or another boy or something across train tracks, and another kid follows it and walks in front. Hell, it's a combination between The Exorcist, The Omen, and Pet Sematary. But it's a really memorable episode. Next, we have One Breath, which is an episode that where Scully comes back, and just kind of there's some great visuals in this episode, and we get Mulder finally confronting the cigarette smoking man at his house, like I mentioned earlier. And then we got Die Hand, Die Verzalette, which is a cool episode. It's a unique episode in the fact that you get these teachers that are like summoning demons for some reason, because that's what they do. But they summon the wrong demon, and they get it handed back to them. So a really fun episode with, once again, some cool visuals. And finally, Red Museum. I will not call Red Museum a great episode, because it's not. But it's set in my home state of Wisconsin, and it's always memorable for me for that reason. And it's one of those rare Monster of the Week episodes that kind of becomes a mythology episode with some stories like Deep Throat's Killer and things like that. And it's basically about injecting cows with growth hormones, but these growth hormones had alien DNA in them. So pretty interesting stuff. All right, let's get to the episodes. My 3 favorite mythology episodes. I am cheating a little bit because we are finally starting with the famous 2-parters that the X-Files is known for. And this first 2-parter is Colony and Endgame. This is in an argument for, the best 2-parter in the series of the X-Files. It's not my favorite, but I do love it. There's a 2-parter in season 3, which I like better. But Colony and Endgame are great. We're introduced to the alien bounty hunter. Mulder finally finds his sister, or does he? Are they clones? We don't know. But this is an episode where the pace is just non-stop. And it reminds me of kind of like the beginning of the Erlenmeyer Flask from season 1, but it's just cranked up to 11. And like I said, this alien bounty hunter, played by Brian Thompson, is just constantly going around, and he can shapeshift into anyone on the planet. So it just kind of creates a new danger. And the way the episode starts with kind of like a cliffhanger of Mulder kind of being dead and Scully knowing how to save him, and you're just like, whoa, what happens here? The stuff with Samantha Mulder's sister, wasn't a huge fan of. But we are introduced to Mulder's parents for the first time. Who made this guy? And we see his dad is a little interesting. He's not the most welcoming person. He's clearly living with some regrets, which will come up later. Next, we have my second mention for mythology episodes is going to be Dwayne Barry slash Ascension. Now, this is kind of a two-parter. It is and it isn't, right? They're unlike Colony and Endgame. This is two separate episodes with just kind of a cliffhanger of a continuing story, and that's Scully getting abducted by Dwayne Barry. The reason I wanted to include the actual Dwayne Barry episode in here and not just Ascension is because I think the guy that plays Dwayne Barry is fucking fantastic. I love the way he talks in the third person. You can tell this guy is fucking nuts. And what he does, the choices this actor makes, I don't know if it's with his eyes, with his face, but you feel for him. You really do. He's kidnapping Scully, probably to kill her, or to get her abducted. But the way he talks, like, please don't stop, Dwayne Barry. Please, like you feel that he believes what happened to him is true. And whether he was actually abducted by aliens or the government, we never know. And then Mulder and Krychek's chase to find Scully, Krychek's betrayal. It's all just really, really good stuff here. And then finally, Scully is gone. And Mulder did everything he could to try to get to her, and was just a little bit too late. And it's just devastating. So Dwayne Barry and Ascension, it's a really big episode as far as X-Files lore goes, because what happens during Scully's abduction, has huge ramifications, obviously, for the rest of the series moving forward. And finally, the season finale, Anasazi. Fantastic episode, and it's really hard to talk about this without talking about the beginning of season 3 with like Paperclip and The Blessing Way, but we're just talking about season 2 here, and Anasazi is great. You get Mulder basically losing his shit, and you find out that it's because the government is poisoning his tap water. And then you get the disc, his holy grail. Mulder gets his holy grail, truth about the government, like the Defense Department's data on the existence of extraterrestrials, but it's encrypted, and you get these Navajo Indians, and it's just great shit. And Scully is the one that saves Mulder this time, which is awesome. It's good to see Scully being able to save Mulder, because there's too many episodes where Mulder is saving Scully, but Scully comes through, saves Mulder. Krychek kills Mulder's dad. I mean, there's just so much going on here. And then that end, the phone call with the smoking man, fucking great when you get to this fucking train car with these bodies that look like alien bodies, and when Smoking Man's like, burn it, and you see the train car burn, and the season ends like that. I remember watching this when I was just a kid, and I was like, holy shit, what's gonna happen? And for those of us old folks like me, you had to wait like 8 months to see what happened. So pretty incredible stuff. All right, let's talk Monster of the Week. I already named all kinds of honorable mentions, but like I said, I'm going to be choosing only 3 of them. Number 1 is going to be Soft Light. This kind of comes towards the end of the season, and I just really like the vibe of this episode. It's starring Monk himself, Tony Shalhoub, and he is a scientist who is playing around with dark matter. And something happens, an accident happens, and all of a sudden, he gets like zapped or something, but his shadow, anytime anyone touches his shadow, they get zapped and they disintegrate or go off somewhere, and they're dead basically. So this guy's losing his mind, and Mulder and Scully are investigating it with some young agent who's trying to make a name for herself, and they kind of slowly start to figure it out. Mulder has to reach out to Mr. X, and Mr. X basically says, I don't know anything, but he does know something. So this is, once again, it's not mythology, but it's the mythology type stuff where it's joining up with a Monster of the Week episode. And I think Tony Shalhoub is awesome in here, playing someone unhinged, and it's just a really creepy episode, the way they film it and everything. So I really like Soft Light. My next Monster of the Week is gonna be Host. I'm talking about the Fluke Man. This is the second episode. I think it's second or third. I think it's second episode. Stand to be corrected if it's not, but it's definitely the second or third. But we get, possibly, other than Eugene Toombs, the most memorable monster in X-Files history. And it's funny because he's played by Darren Morgan, who was the writer on the next episode I'm going to talk about. And he's a guy that wrote a handful of X-Files episodes, not a lot, but every single one is fucking memorable. But He plays this guy called the Fluke Man, and he's essentially a big human fluke person. And this is fucking disgusting. He just sits around and shit. He's in the sewer system in like Newark, New Jersey. And this is a rare episode because the Fluke Man is caught, midway through the episode, not at the end. And then he escapes again, and it's just crazy. It's just really memorable, creepy shit. So Host from the early on in the season is my number 2. And finally, we got to talk about an episode called Humbug. This is set in Gibsonton, Florida, which is a town of circus freaks. And Mulder and Scully go there. Like I said, this was written by Fluke Man himself, Darren Morgan. Every time there's a Darren Morgan episode, I sit up in my chair because this guy just works on all kinds of great themes. And this theme of this is these circus freaks. Mulder and Scully investigate a murder in this town in Florida where there's these circus freaks. And what you start to realize is Mulder and Scully are kind of the freaks of this town. All these people are, I don't want to say normal, but they're just living their lives, and they're a community there. And Mulder is basically the freak of this episode. And the way Darren Morgan plays on those themes, the way everything is done in this episode, it's just really, really good. It's really entertaining, and this kind of showed people what the X-Files could be. And I think when it came out, it wasn't very well received because there was too much comedy in it. But as the series progressed, they realized they could try all kinds of different things. So this was a big episode showing that the X-Files didn't just have to be some show that was just creepy and spooky the whole time. Now, this episode has its moments. I mean, there's a fucking monster in it. But it's mainly just a comedy episode about a bunch of circus freaks. And it is really well written. It's got a lot of heart. And Mulder and Scully are great in it. And so anytime Darren Morgan does an episode, especially next season, you want to pay attention because there's a lot of great shit in there. The guy's a fantastic writer. So, season 2 of The X-Files. Those are my revisited thoughts. I'm excited for you guys to hear my season 3 revisited thoughts because I'm excited to, I'm 4 episodes in. I'm already like, oh man, I can't wait to talk about this shit. But yeah, season 2 of The X-Files is a fantastic season. I got to enjoy these first few seasons because soon, we're going up right now. We're going on an upward trajectory with this show. But soon enough, you hit a cliff and you start going down and then really go down, as with most shows. But I'm really, really enjoying revisiting this series. So tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. Are you a fan of season 2? What's your favorite episode in season 2? Who's your favorite character? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.